Okay, I swear to God, I'm not trying to copy DNC. I usually try to avoid things that everybody else is talking about, but I was literally about to record this when he uploaded his version, so I haven't watched his yet. But I have to talk about this because I want Miles Morales to be a good character. And then I saw this on CBR. Oh, I'm in incognito mode because CBR kept doing that. Hey, you got ad blocker even though you don't fucking have ad blocker. And I tried to use that archive thing that the homie Major Tom told me about, but it literally made the article like 1 inch and everything was down, so it was unreadable. So let's just look at this headline. Miles Morales is being handled by black creators. Finally. Now, I don't get this. I truly do not understand this at all. So let's just get into this. We see he does have Spider-Man Annual #1 coming out. I'm probably going to cop that because I like that Miles is biracial. I like his costume. I like his sort of character history with his uncle being the Prowler. I haven't read everything, but I read the end of the Ultimate Spider-Man where he emerged, and then the series that was right after that. I read him a little bit in some of the team books, and he just constantly, I don't know if it's me or he's just too young of a character for me. Like, if and when they age Miles, I feel like that's going to be good. But I am super psyched for the animated movie. So, we see he'll be respectively written and drawn by Brian Hill and Nelson Blake II. So I looked these guys up. They've done some work for Image. This guy's done Bonehead, which I read the first issue of, and it wasn't bad. It was just not for me. I mean, I like my parkour, but I don't want it being the focus. I need some martial arts in there. And then Nelson Blake has also done some work for some Image. They may have done work for other companies, but it seems like Image is where they've done the most. And so Nelson Blake is the one drawing it. And so I was like, oh, I'll check out his Instagram, see what his art style is like. You can see it's a little Disney, but then I was like, oh, who's this band? Who could it be? Protest the Hero? Holy shit, Nelson Blake? Nelson Blake's in the know. Protest the Hero is one of those bands that I haven't seen, but I really want to see. They're Canadian, so they tour Canada all the time. But anyway, so let's just get into this. Apart from Bendis, Miles has largely been written by white men. God damn it. Up until fairly recently, most of the legacy characters in the Marvel Universe were primarily written by white men. I just hate white men. I just fucking hate them. Like, they're awful. They literally have not advanced society to this point today. Ugh. And I didn't even know this, but apparently Bendis created Miles because of his adopted son. Here it is. Brian Michael Bendis and Sarah Pichelli. I'm doing the Italian hand motion you can't see. With the express intent of giving Bendis' adopted children more than one? A character to look up to. That's noble. Come on. I like that. Jesus. Oh, apparently there have been criticism for the way the characters were written and the way they were drawn. I just don't think he's been written that well overall. Like, really whiny. And I don't think having black people write him will... They just need a good writer in there. And, let's see. White men are the people given the opportunity to pin the young hero's adventures. He created them. Oh, you know what, Brian? We respect that you created this character, but we're gonna have to take him away from... I mean, technically, it's Marvel's character, so that's fine. Miles has been written perfectly as a teenager. I would disagree with that. But he wasn't... he's not even really a teenager. From what I've read, he was like 12, which I wouldn't classify that as a teenager. But he wasn't always written as a black teenager. CBR, he is half black, half Puerto Rican, if I'm remembering that right. I know he's half Latino. There's a big difference between the two. And writing a black teen in 2018 comes with a lot of baggage. Why? Why does it have to come with a lot of baggage? Comic books are supposed to be fun. You can include some real world stuff in there, but I don't think you have to necessarily be a black writer to include that thing, to include any racism stuff in there. It's fiction. The whole thing with fiction is anybody can write anything as long as it's good. Now more than ever, representation behind the scenes is important, and when Miles hopefully gets boosted to the live action status he deserves in Marvel, I don't know if that'll happen. Hill and Blake are making a mark on Miles' history, however brief it may be. Oh, I think these guys are just doing the annual, but I think he's getting a new creative team. Here we go. Of course, with Miles' potential super spy future involving a SHIELD replacement and globetrotting in some capacity, having a black writer is paramount. Look, I recognize that there are perhaps certain points of view, perspectives, specific dealings that a black writer could do for a black character that a white person can't. But I truly believe that doesn't really matter. As long as you're a human being and you're capable of empathizing with people, you are seeing the cultural movements that are going on, you know history, you can write things that are similar to what a black person would write. I just don't think race should have any bearing on who writes what character or how well it's written. That's my fear, is they're just going to give Miles to some people who aren't that great of writers. I want him to have good stories. That's my only issue. I want him to have good stories. And maybe I can, I want to like him. I give Miles chances all the time. Oh yeah, is paramount. If Miles is going to wind up as a spy or an international hero, he's going to have different setbacks that are unique to people of color. Okay, let's just break this down. So, Jesus Christ. Alright, so what they're saying is, only a black person would be able to realize and interpret how a black person who is going to various countries. So I ask you this, what was his name? Brian Hill. Has Brian Hill been to whatever exotic locales Miles has been to be able to accurately portray that? I'm sorry, Brian. I'm gonna make a guess. I'm gonna say you probably haven't been to wherever Miles goes if he's becomes an international hero. So how would you even begin to know how? Let's just say how would you even begin to know how a black person would be treated in Thailand? You don't have that experience, and they're saying oh no, you're black. You automatically, it's ingrained in your DNA. You know. You can tell which countries have more racial issues than other ones. And then they say this, which is race does not even factor in at all. It would be unrealistic for Miles to suddenly become James Bond and smooth talk his way out of an international incident. Yeah, that's not his character at all. He's like a young, goofy kid. So, yeah, if somebody changed and wrote him to be a James Bond type, it would be completely out of character. And I think if anybody read his stories, they would be like, oh, that's not his character. That's just it would just be bad writing to just change his character like that. And just because you're black doesn't mean you would automatically... You understand what I'm trying to say here? A white person wouldn't come in and be like, yep, Miles is biracial. He's dicking all the bitches down. No. You would just read some of his stories and realize, oh, yeah, he's not. He's 12, so he has no game at all. Sorry, 12-year-olds. And smooth talk his way out of an international incident when many of the countries he could be operating out of aren't friendly to people of a different skin tone. Again, how would you know that unless Brian Hill or whoever's going to take over for him has been to many different... And it's you can't... I don't feel good generalizing about entire countries based on maybe one specific racial incident. Number one, Brian Hill probably hasn't been to these exotic locales. That's fine. So you wouldn't know how a black person would be treated in, again, I'm just going to go with Thailand. And even then, there's probably one area of Thailand that is more racist than the other. So how could you just generalize like, oh, this is how they treat people with a different skin tone here? Neither Hill or Blake are confirmed to be working on Miles beyond August's annual, and they will set a precedent for other black writers and artists to handle him in the future. Why? Why? Why does that shit matter? I read Alan Moore's writing for comics, and he has this whole thing where you need to be able to empathize, you need to create characters, you need to understand them, you need to really flesh out who your characters are, and then that way, and think about them and really get inside their heads. And that will enable you to write characters that are totally unlike you, or different race, or different experiences. It's all about caring about the character and just putting yourself in someone else's shoes. I have no goddamn idea why in 2018, for some reason, people act like you can't empathize with another person or even begin to understand some of their experiences. We're all human beings. Yes, people have different experiences, but you can talk to people and listen, and then you can put that in your fiction. It's insane that, no. I can tell that a person whose skin was white as a goddamn lily wrote this. It's a moment that's been a long time coming. Fuck off. I just want good stories. And Miles' future needs someone who comes from a background similar to his own. So, okay. Let's just break down Miles' history. He has sort of an intellectual father and a mother who I think is a nurse or something. He won a lotto to go to a prestigious private school. So, I mean, is that, that doesn't sound like the typical biracial New York kid's background. I haven't read any of Miles Morales in a long ass time, but I remember specifically his parents were really banking on him getting that lotto, and it was important to them because he could live at the school and he wouldn't be in their neighborhood, which had some rough elements, I guess, but he's primarily at the school, so he's surrounded by intelligent kids and caring teachers and all these things. You telling me that people don't have that experience? No, they just gotta be black. Also, here's a thing I wanted to point out. Last thing. Okay, Miles Morales, he's existed for 7 years. And I don't think he's had that many good stories. Maybe Bendis is just, like, he's just not, I think he writes them too kiddie or whatever. So yeah, I would like for him to have a different writer and maybe age him a little bit, but that's just me. He could be for kids, and that's fine. But, so I wanted to do this. Let's just look at this. Okay. Let's see. Let's look at the results here. First result, what's the best Miles Morales story? Okay. 15 Reasons Miles Morales is the ultimate Spider-Man. Okay, that doesn't give me any stories to actually read. Where to start reading Miles Morales? Okay, so people are interested in Miles Morales. There's that fan film that I've seen. Now watch this. Best Spider-Man stories. 25 greatest. 10 must read. 50 greatest. 10 top 10, 14, 10, 10. There are literally no articles. Again, our boy Spider-Man's existed for like 50 years. Miles Morales is only listed as 7. But when we Google best Miles Morales stories, there's literally not one that says, this is the definitive, you have to read this story. I just want good stories for Miles. That's all I want. I don't care who writes it. Just race doesn't matter. I don't understand this like preoccupation with race right now. Alright, that's all I wanted to say.